A potentially precedent-setting disqualification hearing is underway right now in an Atlanta courtroom aimed at determining if Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia is constitutionally barred from running for re-election because of her role in the January 6th insurrection. Greene is testifying as a witness during the marathon hearing, making her the first lawmaker to testify under oath about involvement in January 6th. They keep saying insurrection. I'm not going to keep reading that. She's currently on the stand being questioned by lawyers for the voter who challenged her candidacy. At the disqualification hearing, Greene said under oath that she had no knowledge of any attempt to illegally interfere with counting of the electoral votes on January 6th. She also testified she believes President Joe Biden lost the election to Trump. Clay, this is a reminder to the question I think we've been asking, and I want to get into Fauci's understanding of the judiciary in just a second, but this is a breaking news item here. It's underway. This hearing's underway right now because we've been asking, with the border about to be blown wide open, and we have Stephen Miller, formerly of the Trump administration, really top advisor on immigration issues and the border for Donald Trump. He'll be joining us the next hour to talk about this. But it doesn't look like anything's going to go well for Biden and the Democrats to point to. So what's their play? Stuff like this, having constant news stories about January 6th, but also trying to abuse the law, to weaponize the legal process to stop a representative for running for office because they don't like something that happened that she had nothing to do with. I mean, how does this is just it's dirty tricks, it looks like to me.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's a big story because I always look to the precedent that's being set and also to past precedent. And Buck, I can't remember. You tell me if you can. Other than someone going to prison and therefore not being able to continue to fulfill their role. For instance, didn't Jesse Jackson Jr., didn't he go to prison for felony violation? Certainly Rod Blagojevich, the governor of Illinois, went to prison. Elliot Spitzer. I mean, there's been guys who have been unable to fulfill their duties, but I can't remember a sitting elected congressman or senator that was not allowed to run because of something they said or did that was not criminal in nature. And that's a long way of saying there does not appear to me to be very many precedents for situations such as these in the modern era. Again, if you can think of them, I would be curious. You can tweet me at Clay Travis. My recollection is not perfect on these stories, but can you remember one, Buck? I'm talking about somebody who was in Congress or in the Senate, not a criminal-related action, was not allowed to run for re-election.
My understanding is they have, in your neck of the woods, Clay, kicked a few candidates off the ballot in
There's a battle
Nashville.
there, but those are not sitting congressmen or women. Yeah, there's been in my local town of in my local congressional seat race in Nashville, there are big battles over who's being allowed to run for a newly created district that is going to have a Republican congressman.
My understanding, and you may have more background on this for sure, is that obviously Morgan Ortagus and Robbie Starbuck are two of the people that were running in that very contested Republican primary.
Yeah.
Both of whom I know. And they're just booted off the ballot because they passed a measure that they haven't lived there long enough, right? Isn't that?
Well, it's actually interesting. They passed that measure, but the governor waited to sign it. The Republican Party actually did not allow them to be on the ballot because, and I'm not an expert on the governance, but supposedly you have to vote in the Republican primary for 3 of the previous 4 years in order to be considered a bona fide Republican. And so because they haven't voted in the Republican primary in the state for 3 of the previous 4 years, that is the way that I think they disqualified 3 people based on that. Now, I know some about this district because it's a newly created district here in the Nashville area. That is a messy political scene because it's been going on for months now over who's going to run and who's going to be eligible and who's not. And that may well end up in the courts and get litigated there before all is said and done. But the Marjorie Taylor Greene one, to me, the thing that is the most intriguing is she's actually the sitting congresswoman, whether you like her or not.
This is lawfare, basically. This is trying
They're
to
trying
weaponize.
to get her off. She would be reelected, presumably. Otherwise, they're trying to get her off of this district based on something that she said. And I just can't think, Buck, of any precedent for that ever occurring.
Just so a federal judge has allowed this to go through, right? So this is happening right now. That's why this the testimony is happening today in Atlanta. And this is from, again, this CNN write-up of it. Several of Greene's constituents in her Northwest Georgia district initiated a legal challenge last month with backing from a coalition of liberal activists. Yeah, no surprise. They claim Greene aided the insurrection by promoting voter fraud myths, posting videos before January 6th against the peaceful transfer of power, and coordinating with protesters. This is a federal lawsuit to stop the reelection of a Republican, a sitting member of Congress, because a bunch of lib activists don't like her, basically. This is trying to use the law, and it's a more likely than not standard, right? This is not a beyond a reasonable doubt standard. This is a 51%, and that's the theory behind it, and you get the win. So I don't think this is going to work, but it is going forward, and I think it also just does go to show you the lengths to which the left will try to use the system to thwart the will of people in districts, to thwart the will of people nationally in the midterm election. They'll cheat, basically, Clay. They're going to try to find a way to cheat, however that is, and then tell us about how they're so pure and wonderful in saving our democracy. I mean, this lawsuit is absurd.
Yeah, and I think it just is emblematic of the sort of dirty tricks that will be employed. And look, I think it's again, I want you to think about the precedent being set here. We're not talking about somebody who engaged in criminal behavior. We're not talking about somebody who was behind bars and unable to represent their district as a result. The idea that you could be taken off the ballot for something you said, essentially, even if it is a wild or outlandish thing, that's the purpose of elections. People get to decide whether they should be represented by Marjorie Taylor Greene or not. And if her constituent base decides that her opinions are too outlandish to represent them, that's the entire purpose of the ballot. Taking her off the ballot when she is a sitting congresswoman is first of all, the Republican's going to win that district no matter what, because it's very much of a Republican district. But it defeats the entire purpose of democracy if her constituents aren't allowed to make a decision about who represents them.
The way we judge someone's character and what they're contributing to society when they're in elected office is to vote. Unless they, to your point, break the law, unless they do something that is illegal, and posting videos that say, I think this election is stolen, this is First Amendment protected activity. I know the libs don't believe in the First Amendment anymore. I know Barack Obama is going on tour now to tell everybody about the biggest threat to democracy is disinformation. This coming to you from the Democrat Party that tried to have a soft coup against President Trump with the Russia collusion lie for 4 years. But anyway, the biggest threat is disinformation. This is unsettling, to say the least, what's going on right now. It's political score settling. And it is something that we have to watch because I feel like this will not be successful, but this should have never made it into a court. Any decent federal judge should have said, you're not allowed to have a bunch of activists sue to prevent somebody that they don't like from running for re-election in Congress because they don't like her so much. Because they
don't like what she said. That's essentially what they are trying to go after. And again, there's just no precedent for this existing. And if you don't like what someone said, beat them.
Well, they're also they're claiming coordination with the protesters. That's the part of this that goes to action beyond. But coordinate with them how? Like, what does that even mean?
Then charge her with a crime.
Crime, exactly. If she did something that
if she committed a crime, then charge her with a crime. And by the way, if she's charged with a crime, she could still run. And again, her constituents could decide whether or not they believe she should still represent them.